Welcome to Better Outcome. My name is Denise. It's been a while since I shoot a video. And today we want to take the opportunity to thank every single one who has subscribed to this channel. Better Outcomes is fairly a new channel. We just opened up in December 2022. And I had the privilege to shoot 2 videos, and this is our 3rd. Part of the reason why I haven't done anything because I was not feeling well and my voice was totally gone. So it was very challenging to speak. But today we are privileged to be able to do another video. So I want to take the opportunity to thank every single one of you who have supported this channel so far. And I want to say Happy New Year 2023. Happy and blessed New Year 2023. The last time we spoke about obedience on this channel, that was a 2nd video that was exploring, if I recall, the topic was exploring the power and benefits of obedience. But today's topic is different. Is stop making excuses in 2023. Get up and walk. Stop making excuses in 2023. Get up and walk. The Bible tells us a story in John chapter 5. It's actually the entire chapter. But I'm trying to save time. I would not read the entire chapter. So I'll read the first verse. First verse from chapter 5 to chapter 9. I will read from verse 1 to verse 9. It says, sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now, there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool which is in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here's a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there and had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Then Jesus said to him, get up and walk. Pick up your mat and walk. Let me repeat it again. Then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. At once, the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. We're going to stop there for a moment. The Bible tells us a story today regarding a man that was paralyzed. But at first, that particular location where he was, there was a pool located in that location. And the pool's name was Bethesda. And that pool is a place where they have healing that normally takes place there. And the Bible tells us about a pool that was there in Jerusalem near the sheep gate. But that pool was surrounded by what they call 5 covered colonnades. It's like 5 pillars. Now those colonnades were there, and there were a great number of disabled, a great number of people who were sick, infirmities, a great number of people who were blind, a great number of people who were lamed, a great number of people who were paralyzed. They were just laying there. Now, I've mentioned to you that the pool was about healing. There was a healing that takes place in that pool. But the way that healing takes place is there was an angel that comes and stir up the water, and there was a healing power that cures any diseases, whatever it was, no matter what it was. But near that pool, there was a man who was paralyzed. That's what we found. That's what we find in verse 4. One who was there had been an invalid, a paralytic, let's call it that way, for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he did ask him, "Do you want to get healed?" It's amazing how sometimes you're going through some stuff and you wonder if God knows exactly where you're at. Does he know where you're located? But God knows exactly where you're at. Jesus knew exactly where that man was, and he knew exactly how long he's been sick, how long he's been having this debilitating disease. He was paralyzed. Now let's talk about that man for a moment. The Bible didn't give us a name for that man. He was referred as the paralytic, as the paralyzed man. That man has been there for 38 years. That's nearly a decade. That's nearly 4 decades. That's nearly 40 years. 38 years laying there by the pool day after day, watching everybody's been healed, but never got a chance. But yet, God knew his address. God knew exactly where he was located at. And he knew how long that man has been sitting there, has been laying there, just laying there by the pool and watching people getting delivered, watching the sick being healed one after the other. Now that's very depressing. You're sitting there on the sideline watching people getting delivered day after day, and you're just sitting there yourself with issues, cannot get any help. But you know what was interesting with that story? After a while, that man, after 38 years, he normalized his sickness. He normalized his condition. Mentally, psychologically, spiritually, and even physically, he normalized his condition. He knew there was a problem. However, he admitted that was normal for him. So he felt comfortable in his situation. He lay there for 38 years. So surprisingly, on verse 4, when Jesus walked by and saw him lying there and knew what was going on with his condition for such a long time, he asked him one question. Simply one question. Do you want to get well? Simple question that deserved a simple answer. Unfortunately, the man replied, "I have no one to help me in the pool when the water is stirred." The man started to give an explanation of his situation. He started rationalizing, talking about what happened, what transpired. I'm not sure. I've had issues. There's no one to help me out. Oh, yada, yada, yada. There's a pity party that started from the moment that Jesus asked him that simple question that truly deserved a simple answer. But the man went on and on and on. He was digressing. He was going and talking about how he was just laying there. There was no one to help him out. Every single time he tried to get in, someone else got in before him. That's not the question. You need to learn how to answer the question directly. And that's what a lot of us do sometimes. We normalize our situation. And when it's time for us to get delivered, we rationalize. We give excuses. We talk about why is it that way. We talk about why it's never going to change. We talk about why it's the way it's supposed to be. The man was making excuses to about his situation. He was digressing instead of answering the question, which is a simple yes or no. Yes, Lord, I want to get healed. That's all he had to say. But he went on and on and on and on, talking about how he had no help. That's not the question. Jesus didn't ask you, do you get any help? Did you need help? He didn't say anything like that. And it's amazing how sometimes we're so used to the way we are, the situations that we're in. We're so accustomed to that situation. And now when it's time for us to get our deliverance, we cannot accept the fact that it's truly going to happen. Because we have normalized our situation. It became a way of life. It became who we are. The man became a paralytic. And he accepted the fact that this is how it's always going to be. Because when you think about it, the Bible is very clear on that. It says 38 years. Why 38 years? That's such a long time. It's a chronic situation. And when you're dealing with something with chronic, you tend not to believe that there's going to be any kind of deliverance. When you're dealing with a situation that's always been there no matter what, you tend to accept the fact that this is how it's going to be. So therefore, there's no way around it. There's no way you're going to challenge that status quo. But Jesus came to the picture to challenge the status quo. And that's what he can do in your life. Challenge the status quo. Oh, that's the way it used to be with my family. That's the way it used to be with my grandmother. That's the way it used to be my grandfather. That's the way it used to be. In my family, nobody gets this. Nobody gets that. But Jesus can challenge the status quo. And he did it in John chapter 5. He said, "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me when the pool is stirred. I'm trying to get in, but someone else goes ahead of me." You know what's so interesting? After someone has been there for 38 years, what happened to the one who were healed? What happened to those people who were healed when the angel stirred the water and they were healed? Why couldn't they go back and help out that man? There are times your situation, only God can step in and pull you out of your mess. Only God can step in and change the direction of your life. Others may be around you. You might be surrounded, but nobody cares. Because they have not received that order to help you out. The order is given by the men above. Jesus came in the picture, found out what was going on, and he decided to help. Now, for 38 years, they couldn't team up together. Whatever happened to a support system? I thought when we go through something, our job is to go back and help others. It was not the case for that man. It was very different. It was not the case. And he was depending on others to help him out. And he had already given up at some point. Because when he realized no one is coming to his rescue, then he started normalizing his condition. He started normalizing his situation. It was totally accepted. He developed an acceptance level that is okay. So now help has arrived. Rescue came. He would not accept rescue. He would not accept any kind of help. Because he didn't see this happening. It was total ignorance. Spiritual ignorance, let's call it that way. And he had already accepted the fact that there's no way this was going to happen. But when Jesus came in the picture, when he showed up, he had to show down. Then Jesus said in verse 8, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." At once, the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. Let's pause for a second. Jesus gave 3 orders. Get up, pick up your mat, and walk. You don't just get up and do nothing. You're going to get up and do something. He's going to get up, pick up his mat, and walk toward his destiny. Very interesting to talk about this. A man who was laying by the pool for so long, for 38 years. You tell me, how do you get someone up after they've been laying for 38 years? Impossible. Whatever happened to muscle atrophy? For those of you who are in healthcare, whatever happens to muscles atrophy? No range of motion for 38 years, just laying there. And that situation that he was in must have been really disgusted, because when you think about it, someone who's just laying on a mat for 38 years, think about it. It's not going to be clean. It's going to be very dirty. No hygiene, no personal hygiene, no activity of what they call a daily living, being able to fix his face, wash his face, groom his hair, do things for himself. No, none of that. So he must have been really looking bad physically. The guy never had a decent shower, just laying on the floor for so long. So that mat must have been super dirty. Hygiene must have been a big issue. And now he received orders to get up. He received orders to pick up his mat and walk. All of a sudden, Jesus decided to have what they call a runway. He created a runway show. He created a pathway. Now he has a model who's modeling in that runway for him. Because the guy is walking around with his mat over his shoulder. And this is a man that's been laying there for so long with weakness. He was a paralytic, unable to move, unable to groom himself, unable to do things for himself. But suddenly, he's up and about, carrying a load, carrying his mat, and walking toward his destiny. Only Jesus could have done that. So he followed the orders, picked up his mat, and walked. The moment he obeyed those words, things will change immediately. And the day, verse 10, it says, the day of which it took place was a Sabbath. And so the Jewish leaders said to the men, who has healed you? It is the Sabbath, because normally during the Sabbath, there's no healing that takes place. But it's amazing how he was laying there for 38 years, nobody cared. And suddenly, when things get better, he's delivered, and everybody had a comment. And sometimes that's how it is. You could be going through your stuff, going through your issues, and nobody cares. But the moment things get better, God brought you the spotlight. People start noticing you, start seeing you. Now you got issues. Now you have enemies. Now you have problems. Verse 10 says, and so the Jewish leaders said to the men who had healed you, it is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat. Why do they care? Where were they the entire time? The entire 38 years the man was laying there. This is his time to enjoy. But unfortunately, there were some haters But he replied, the men who made me well said to me, pick up my mat and walk. So he's just following the word of Jesus. So they ask him, who is this fellow who told you to pick up your mat and walk? He had no idea. And I love the verse 13 that says, the men who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. Absolutely. He had no idea who that was. When you are ignorant spiritually, you have no idea what kind of God you serve. You have no idea who God is. So when he calls you out of your mess, you're having some issues to move. When he calls you out of your situation, you're having some trouble believing that you are going to get out of that situation. When he calls you, you're having trouble hearing his voice. Because the whole time the conversation took place by the pool, the man has no idea that was Jesus. He thought it was just a regular man who performed a miracle. And verse 13 told us that the men had no idea that was Jesus. And later Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, see, you are well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you. So now we knew the source of his paralysis. We knew the source now of his issues, where they came from. Apparently the man was sinning. There's some kind of sin that the Bible is not too clear on that, but he said, stop sinning or something worse may happen to you. So the man was not born paralyzed. He became a paralytic secondary to a sin. And later on met Jesus that transformed his life. The man went away and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who made him well, because by that time he knew that Jesus was a healer. But it's just that particular day when he met him, he had no idea who that was. When Jesus asked him that question, do you want to be healed? He had no clue what was going on and where the conversation was going. And sometimes if we can only identify who God is, when he tells us to do something, we would run and get it done and watch the miracle happening in our lives. So in this 2023, it is a new year. It's not a year for you to sit around and just dealing with your situation as usual. But it's a year for you to rise up, get up, and walk. Walk away from your mess. Walk away from your situation. Walk away from your troubles. Walk away from your status quo. It's time for change. It's time for restoration. Because that man's life was restored that day. The day he decided to get up and walk, followed those orders. The day he decided to follow those orders that Jesus gave him, his life was transformed. And everyone, of course, were asking questions. Who transformed your life? I want to tell you today that your life can be transformed. In 2023, it's not the time to be sitting around your situation like back in 2022. And God is not interested in your years back. He's interested in the now. Because he's not a God who's going to be looking at your resume, what you've done in the past. No, that's not his concern. His concern is to transform the now and bring you to a better future. So in your situation, there's a decision. When the question popped up for that man, he had no idea. He could not identify Jesus. Because if he knew that was Jesus who was talking to him, he would have answered the question. But first, he didn't know that was Jesus. Number two, he was so used to his situation, he normalized it. It was a normal way of doing things. But life can change. Life can be restored. When Jesus stepped in your mess, he created a message. He created one way. He created a runway for you to walk. And you're going to be modeling for him. Because that man was modeling for Jesus in that runway with that mat. What does he need that mat for? He doesn't need that mat. But it's a reference. It's a reference, and now to show his strength. Because he used to be paralyzed, could not perform his daily activity, and suddenly he can actually carry his own mat. And now he has total control. He's completely healed. Now he's independent. The God that I serve makes a way where there seems to be no way. And just like the song says, he works in ways that none of us can see. And he's always making a way. 2023, he's still a way maker. He can change your situation. Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to move forward when the question is asked? Do you want to be healed? Perhaps your question is not about healing. Perhaps your question is, do you want to be restored? Perhaps your question is about, do you want to grow spiritually? Do you want to grow financially? I'm not sure what your question is. But look at the person that is asking the question. It's not me. My question would not be valuable. But the man who's asking the question, his name is Jesus. And when you have that opportunity to speak with the master, to answer his question, which is very simple, all you need to say is, yes, I want to be healed. Yes, I want to get up. Yes, I want to pick up my bag. And yes, I want to walk. Pick up your bag. Pick up your mat. Get up and walk. No more excuses in 2023. No more excuses. It's not about the situation that you're in that's going to hold you back forever. But it's a mindset. Jesus wants to change things for you. Are you willing to move forward? Or are you still looking for the same excuses day in, day out? No, I can't. Yes, you can. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Be blessed. If this video resonated with you, please subscribe, share, and comments so we can continue to do the work of God. Be blessed, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.